Hello, my name is Bryce, and this is my channel Striving Intellect. And today we're going to talk about TikTok and whether or not it functions as a Trojan horse. And recently, there's actually been an extension on the TikTok ban. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has said that he would like it to be sold to an American company, so he is going to extend it by 75 days. This is the second extension that he's actually made so far. And previously, both the House of Representatives and the Senate have both said in past that it should be either sold or shut down completely. I believe the actual Supreme Court has also agreed on this. So it's gone through basically all of the different parts of the United States government. And that being said, still, there are individuals who think it should not be banned. But we're just going to lightly compare TikTok to something that I think is actually pretty similar. And that would actually be a malware called a Trojan horse. And generally speaking, there's a large amount of different types of Trojan horses, but most of the time they do have similarities on the way that they actually function inside of your computer. So we're just going to lightly go over some characteristics of the Trojan horse malware. The Trojan horse virus or malware disguises itself as legitimate software to gain access to a system, and unlike viruses or worms, does not self-replicate but relies on user interaction for spread. Once installed, it can perform malicious activities like stealing data, installing further malware, and creating backdoors for remote access. And real quick, here are a couple different things that generally Trojan horse malware and viruses will actually do. Once installed, Trojans can perform various malicious activities, including data theft, stealing sensitive information like passwords, credit cards, and personal files, backdoor access, creating backdoors that allow attackers to remotely control the infected system, spyware installation, installing spyware to monitor user activity and collect data, system damage, corrupting and deleting data and disrupting system performance, further malware installation, installing additional malware such as other Trojans, viruses, and worms. Silent operation. Trojans often operate silently in the background, making it difficult for users to detect. And there's just like a couple different types of Trojans right there. And we're going to go to security.org real quick, and it'll actually kind of go over a couple more things that Trojan malware can generally do. So, thinking of the attachments was legitimate. You unwittingly downloaded and installed a Trojan. What happens now? Okay, we're going to skip over that. What can a Trojan do? Delete your files, install additional malware, modify data on your device, copy your data, disrupt your device's performance, steal your personal information, and send messages from your email or phone number. So those are the things that a Trojan malware / virus for a computer can do. And it's not actually limited to that, but generally speaking, the defining features is it's usually disguised as either a program or a file, sometimes even a functioning program, and it's used to sneak it past the individual or get it into their downloads so that it will specifically be run or installed on the computer. So let's actually go over some of the different things that your phone allows access to when you install TikTok. So these are the access to specific phone features. You give it access to your camera, access to take pictures and videos. You give it access to your microphone, access to record sounds. You give it device's Wi-Fi connection, access to the device's Wi-Fi connection, access to your contacts list, full contacts list, access to your GPS details and information about user location, your storage, ability to read and write on devices storage, shortcuts, install and remove shortcuts, your flashlight, retrieve a list of other running apps, read your home screen settings, and read and delete information from your SD card. Does that sound similar to a Trojan horse? I don't know. This is TikTok that we're talking about. There's no way it could be a Trojan horse. That would be the most successful and expensive Trojan horse in history. That being said, here's a couple things that have been listed specifically that government officials are worried about. So TikTok collects excessive amounts of data. And that's obvious, but there's actually a couple things that the Chinese government has implemented where every organization in the Chinese economy has to actually abide by. So these are laws that were signed in by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and basically any company that functions in their actual country has to do all of these things, or they'll be shut down and thrown in prison. Generally, that's how things work in China. It depends, but usually that's how it works. So the National Intelligence Law of 2017 requires any organization or citizen to support, assist, and cooperate with the state intelligence work and to maintain the confidentiality of the intelligence operations. The law also allows the CCP to compel firms to install backdoors in equipment or software, and it creates a system of incentives and penalties for compliance. And again, does this sound familiar to my description of Trojan horses? The 2017 cybersecurity law requires critical infrastructure companies to store data within the PRC, the People's Republic of China, and to make this data accessible to intelligence services as needed. Again, they have to store all information that the company's collected in China, and then they have to give it over to the government when asked for it. The 2021 Data Security Law further expands the CCP's access to and control of companies and data within China, including the ability to control the outbound flow of data. Obviously, that's for censorship. The 2023 revision to counter-espionage law requires all citizens and organizations to assist the government with counter-espionage operations. Since the law expands the concept of espionage in an ambiguous manner, the law may govern anything the CCP deems relevant to national security. Okay, so those are just a couple of many laws that basically make it impossible for any company in China to function without cooperating with the Chinese government. There are also laws making it to where any company with over 50 employees must have a branch of the Communist Party commissant in their office as well. So generally speaking, there is going to be a bureaucrat from the Chinese Communist Party in any large enough company's office. So generally, I would say the idea that every other company that does social media collects data as well is not a good excuse, because at least those companies are in the United States. They're not in a Chinese communist-run country that has a multitude of laws compelling their companies to give over all of their data information. So we'll go out and we'll go on. TikTok could be used as a Chinese government to spy on users. I mean, obviously, with all of the functionalities, camera, GPS location, messages, web history, all of that could be used to spy on individuals. That's not saying that it is specifically or has, although there is a large amount of debate about that. Again, it could be used for it. TikTok could be used as a brainwashing tool. I mean, as a Psyop operation, it's obviously something like this that can control social information and different trending news and different trends on the internet. All of these things are obviously tools that a regime like the Chinese Communist Party could use against the people using it. That's pretty obvious. There's been a lot of really, at the very least, wild trends that young people do on TikTok, so who knows, maybe that is happening. Theoretical risk. I mean, generally speaking, I would say that there is a massive pushback from the United States, India, and a couple other countries to ban TikTok. India has already banned TikTok in 2020. But that being said, there's, generally speaking, a massive amount of risk having any massive social media company that's run by a regime that obviously doesn't wish the best upon the United States. Especially seeing that a large amount of our young people in the United States get a large amount of their information from TikTok. So, that being said, I personally think that the United States should just completely ban TikTok. Maybe they could sell it off if that's a possibility. It doesn't seem like that might be a possibility, especially with the tariffs. But that being said, personally speaking, I think that it is a Trojan horse. I think that it's a psyop specifically used on a large swath of our population to inseminate information that's generally incorrect. Let's just be completely frank about it. Most information on TikTok, if that's where you get your news, is going to be misinformation or just wrong or conspiracies or propaganda. Large amount of propaganda, seeing that it's literally a propaganda tool of the Chinese Communist Party. So personally, I think Donald Trump is wrong. I think he should just ban it completely. A free market will come up with a different alternative that isn't controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. It's ironic that I would say free market should ban this product, but it's a national security threat. It's a risk, and it's being used as a Trojan horse / psyop on our population. And I just thought that was interesting. I hope you guys like this video. Please leave a like and subscribe.